time to participate tonight. My name is Chris Spencer. I'm the secretary for the board, and I'll be your moderator tonight. Before I ask our party candidates to introduce themselves, I would just like to take a minute or two to give you a little bit of background of what's brought us here tonight. Our organization, a couple or 3 weeks ago, decided that they'd like to have this debate this evening, and we sent out invitations to the 5 established parties in the province, and we all know who those are. Now, if you witnessed something here a moment ago where one person felt that they weren't welcome, we did not invite any independents. Our board, geographically, is large. We're the largest board in the province, and we cover 14 ridings in southern New Brunswick. We cannot accommodate all the independents that are out there. So 4 of the 5 parties that we invited to participate responded, and they are here this evening. So for anybody else that considers themselves an independent in this election coming up on September 24th, my apologies, but the logistics simply do not accommodate the number of people that could potentially be involved in 14 ridings in our board. I'm just going to take a couple or 3 minutes of your time, and we'll get down to the business at hand.
Wait a second. I don't think that's right. I think they should have a voice.
They certainly can have a voice. Right there in the audience.
Okay.
And I invited that individual that left to participate, to continue to participate, and put his issues forward.
Right. Well, I'm 24 on this filter version. And there should be a voice for anyone else.
There is. And through the democratic process of an independent, you can make your voice heard. But consider the situation that we're in here tonight. We've got approximately 100 people, 4 parties that we want to allow them, established parties, recognized parties in the province, that we want to, for the benefit of woodlot owners in our area, find out their perspective on the very controversial issues around woodlots. And if we attempted to accommodate the independents across 14 ridings, it couldn't be done. Independents are welcome. Pardon?
I think it is.
Well, I'm sorry. This evening, we have 4 party candidates at the front. Independents are welcome to participate as audience members. Okay, thank you. So, woodlot owners in the province of New Brunswick have been organized since the early 60s. There are more than 40,000 of us scattered across this province. When you count husbands, wives, spouses, children, you could probably triple that. We're a substantial voting bloc within the province. Each woodlot owner is represented by one of the 7 boards, and we own or control 30% of the land base in the province. In the mid-2000s, the sales from woodlots in New Brunswick was in excess of $100 million. This money goes directly into rural New Brunswick. This is not small potatoes, ladies and gentlemen. We contribute substantially to the economy of rural New Brunswick. Woodlot owners have faced many issues throughout the decades. You can go back to the late 50s, early 60s. 3 common themes, and they haven't changed in more than 60 years later. Competition from Crown, inability to obtain fair market access, whether that would be primary access or proportional, and a fair price. Those are the 3 fundamental principles that woodlot owners have been fighting for nearly 60 years, and we're still fighting for it. So, SNB, being one of the largest boards in the province, thought it was important that we hold this debate tonight to see where the parties stand on the various issues that we're going to put forward. So, here in front of you, you can see that the 2018 electoral map in New Brunswick has 49 ridings, and it's important that we ensure that woodlot owners are aware of where parties stand on the issues that are important to us. SNB, being in the south, the largest of the 7 boards, there's more than 8,000 woodlot owners in our geographic boundary, and we cover over 14 ridings.
All right, don't worry.
So we are a large voting bloc. I can't stress enough, I was looking at the statistics this evening before I came out to the debate. In the 2014 election, 1 in 3 people did not vote. There was 570,000 people eligible to vote in the 2014 election. Over 200,000 did not vote. That's a substantial number. We need to get people out to the election booths and participate in the democratic process and ensure that your interests are represented by the people that you elect. So the structure of this evening's debate, I'm going to allow each of the candidates, I don't have their bios in front of me and I wouldn't do it justice, so we're going to allow each individual sitting here tonight to give you 2 or 3 minutes, introduce themselves, a little bit of information about themselves, and then everybody has a handout that was laid out on the chair before you came in. Each of the 3 candidates was provided with 3 fundamental or key questions that came from within our membership. We sort of polled our directors and people that sat around the table and make decisions and asked what are the issues that we feel that should be brought to the forefront. Not that there aren't more important issues, but the 4 party members have been given 3 questions, and we're going to, after their introductions, we're going to allow them an opportunity to respond to each one of those individually. And my co-worker here in the front, he's going to have a stop clock on it, so that this doesn't get too long-winded. We're going to try and max each response out to around 3 minutes, gentlemen. And when Rudy throws his hat in the air, you've got about a 30-second left in your time slot. So if you're wondering what the 3 questions were, it's part of your handout material. The other questions that are in there were other issues that were brought forward by our membership. And then there's the last document was a document that was put forward by our federation that represents the 7 groups, and it was put to all the parties on other issues. So as you sit here tonight and you're questioning what some of the party positions are on some of these burning issues, you can reflect back through some of the responses that were provided to the Federation, and it'll give you some insight. If you don't feel comfortable taking the mic, we do have a portable mic to pose questions to our candidates after they've responded to the 3 questions. There are cue cards that are located throughout the room here tonight. If you want to jot down a question, bring it forward, give it to Pam's at the back room, or Rudy, or bring it to myself, and we'll see that it gets put forward. You can address your question directly to an individual candidate or to the group at large. Time permits, and as the evening progresses, we're looking to have this wrapped up by no later than 9 p.m. We will entertain questions directly from the floor via mic. Any questions? All right, I have, if you're wondering how I set up the seating at the front, it's alphabetical. So I ensured everybody that I would not be biased in the selection of who speaks first. So Jim, I'll allow you to speak first. Your name shows up in the alphabet first, and take 2 or 3 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Bruce.
There's a mic there.
I don't think I need. Can everybody hear me all right? How's that? Is that better? Yeah. All right. My name is Jim Bedford. I'm running with the People's Alliance in the Sussex, Fundy, and St. Martin's area. I live in Fairfield. Anybody who doesn't know where that is? It's on just the other side of St. Martin's. And I have a company on Park Street, so I commute back and forth every day. I come in the morning, go home at night. The company is called QC Pumps and Compressors. Been there established for the last 3 years. And we do mechanical work and that kind of stuff. The reason that I believe that I got involved in politics is that I just I think it's time for a change. I'm not happy with the way things are going, and I threw my hat into the ring to say if I can make even a little bit of a change to make things better for the people of New Brunswick, then I've accomplished my goal. If you have any questions, I'll be around later on tonight. Please feel free to reach out and give me your questions. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
My name is Bruce Northrup. I'm the candidate for the PC party for Sussex, Fundy, St. Martin's. I've been born and raised here in Sussex. Lived basically all my 63 years here in Sussex, and moved to Wards Creek in 1989 and married and 2 children, and just had my first grandchild 4 months ago. So I'm quite proud of that. It certainly changes your life when you get a grandchild. But I'm very happy to represent the PC party here of the old riding of Kings East for 8 years, and now the new riding of Sussex Fundy St. Martin's for the last 4 years. And I've kind of had a good way of politics. There's an opposition and in government, so I've got to see both sides of the coin and how politics works. It's not a 8 to 4 Monday through Friday job. I enjoy it and still feel that I've got things to give back to this riding. Thank you.
I'm John Sabin from the Green Party in representing the candidate. I'm the candidate for Hampton. I'll keep things as short as I can. Long story short, I'm a private woodlot owner. I have a hobby farm. I have a small business, private investigation company, and I retired from policing. Very active in the community, and to me that's extremely important for all of us to give back if we're lucky enough to be able to do that. I've done that all my life. I was awarded the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal for my community service. I continue to do that. Presently, I'm the chairman of the Norton LSD Advisory Committee, vice president of the Hampton Curling Club. I'm the treasurer of the Blue Knights Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club. I'm on the board of directors of the Federation of Woodlot Owners, and also the vice chair of the SMB Forest Products Marketing Board.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming. I'm Ian Smith. I'm the Liberal candidate for Sussex Fundy St. Martin's. I'm a former Canadian soldier. I flew commercial aircraft. I run and operate my own business just down the road here, Armadale Farm Dairy Products. I'm also happily married with 4 children. I'm involved in the Rotary Club of Sussex. And I ran into one of my colonels from the military here in Petticodiac here 2 weeks ago. And he asked me, he said, son, he said, what are you up to now? He said, I'm in politics. He said, you still want to serve people? I said, I do. So that's my dream. I've cheated death 7 times. And I'm still here. So anyways, I'll be around the end too if you guys want to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Won't turn off. Just hit the button. There. Do any of the candidates need the 3 questions? Everybody get their documents with them? So if you reflect in your document, the first question that was put to our candidates is a little bit of a long-winded preamble. I'll very quickly speed read that, and then I'm going to have to come up with a method of selecting candidates randomly to give everybody a fair opportunity to reply. And maybe we'll start in reverse the alphabetical order. So Ian, we'll be looking at you after we give everybody the background. So our first question, the background information. Since 2012, one of the province's largest industrial forest players has been challenging, and some would say ignoring, provincial legislation that gives forest products marketing boards the authority to negotiate with mills and regulate the harvesting of forest products from private woodlots. Over the past 5 to 6 years, this company and others have refused to negotiate in good faith with woodlot owner marketing boards and began actively pursuing individual direct contracts with woodlot owners and producers. This strategy of divide and conquer was initiated first here in the southern area of the province and more recently spread to other regions. Recognizing the strategy of division, the largest of the 7 boards, SMB, decided to strengthen the wording of its board orders to ensure there were no loopholes that industry could work around. In 2015, SMB made application to the Forest Products Commission to carry out this revision. The revision was approved for general application by the Commission, acknowledging that it was within the scope of the acts and the regs. SMB has now been embroiled in a legal battle with one of the province's largest forest companies trying to defend what many people would view as recognized provincial legislation. So the question that was posed to the candidates, if elected to power, what would you and your party do to ensure that existing legislation is respected in the province of New Brunswick and ensure the Woodlot Owner Marketing Board's legislative authority is not continually being challenged by large corporate interests through unnecessary litigation. Ian?
Our party, more details would be needed on exactly what is being proposed that would limit this litigation. However, since we, the Liberals, have been in office, we have protected and maintained the integrity of the marketing board system. The Liberal government will direct the minister responsible through a mandate letter to ensure Section 3.2 of the Crown Act and Forest Act of New Brunswick is respected, and that management of private forest lands as the primary source of timber for wood processing facilities in New Brunswick. We will continue to listen and improve forest management efforts as the industry practices evolve. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Bruce? Oh, sorry, my mistake. John, my mistake.
Oh, that's fine.
Sorry.
I'm used to being ignored.
Sorry.
No problem. I'll try not to do a lot of spin and try to answer questions directly. And certainly with a green government, the first thing that we would do is insist that the Forest Products Commission follow their mandate under the legislation when it comes to negotiating with mills. It's been over a decade since, maybe even more, since they've done that. So that's number one that has to happen. And if that doesn't happen, and that's certainly been our experience in the SMB area, that we don't have good faith negotiations, well, then the minister and the green minister would, in fact, withhold Crown allocation from companies that will not negotiate in good faith with private woodlot owners, period. And if that does happen in a court challenge of a lawful order put forward by a board, if they make a lawful order under the legislation, and that is challenged by any industry, then a green government would support the marketing board and pay for the lawyers required to uphold the legislation as it exists.
Thank you, John. Bruce?
The 7 boards that are here in New Brunswick play an important role. I've been very fortunate to work with all 7 of them for 3 years, and I've enjoyed the meetings that we've had. I've enjoyed the conversation that we had, and I truly believe that things were kind of going in the right way with the woodlot owners a few years ago. If elected, this is something that we would look into, and obviously the last 4 years I've not had a lot of information as to what's going on, but I have met with a few of the people that are involved in this the last 3 years, and it's something that our party would definitely look at if elected. Thank you.
Just a good question. I've spent the last 3 months going door to door, listening to what the concerns of the people are. Lots of frustration. So the Green Party has come out with an answer to this question, and the answer would be reestablishing a policy of Crown lands to be considered Crown Reserve, with private woodlots considered to be the primary source of supply before any Crown leases operating are approved. This would ensure the establishment of a free market value for woodlot owners currently subjected to dictated, undervalued payment for their products. Providing more competitive access to Crown land and reviewing all current Crown license agreements to open prospective to current idle mills, plus pending opportunities which would include diversified or value-added opportunities. Forest planning and management processes to respect our Aboriginal rights, plus protection of social, cultural, and spiritual sites. Replacing access to forest resources in communities with a significant and traditional forest component. And reestablish the forest extension services to woodlot owners and small businesses to develop woodlots and optimize the benefits, which would also include diversified value added for non-timber products. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Second question. According to Energy and Resource Development Analysis for the fiscal period 15-16, the latest year this information was made available, there was $6.3 million invested, which includes boards and owners' contributions in private woodlot silviculture programs. This includes tree planting and thinning. During this same period, there was $19 million invested in crownland silviculture. According to ERD calculations, this represents a proportional investment of $3.50 for every hectare of private land in the province and $6.30 for every hectare of crown land in the province. This puts private woodlot owners at a significant financial disadvantage compared to crown land, whereby nearly a doubling of dollars are invested on crown land proportional to private. Question 2, we're going to start with John. Would you or your party support leveling of the playing field to ensure that private woodlots receive a proportional and equitable share of limited silviculture dollars?
Yes.
Yes, a green government would make sure that the same funding level would exist on Crown as it does on private. So there will be equality in the two places. Now, and under the silviculture program, we need to look at that again and make sure that what we're spending our dollars on is just not fiber for industry. There's many other things involved in forestry that come under the silviculture program. So that needs to be reviewed, looked at again, and some other things added, because for our provincial forest and our crown land, we want more than just a place to grow fiber.
Bruce? Thanks, John.
It's my understanding, and I can't say this for sure, but the last 4 years, it's my understanding silviculture has been cut in the program. I'm proud to sit here today and say that when we were in government for 4 years, the silviculture program stayed intact. And I'm certainly proud to have that money for the private woodlot operators stay intact. It wasn't an easy job when you're dealing with bureaucrats and different other people that wanted to reduce the silviculture program. So we want to keep it intact. We want to add to it, and the proportional part to the crown land has to be looked at in a very serious way, and to maybe add on to the private woodlot and reduce the ones on crown land. Thank you.
Bruce, Jim?
In short answer, the People's Alliance, yes. We definitely support the woodlot owners, and if they meet the criteria laid out for the silviculture, that they need to receive their equal share of silviculture, the silviculture dollars. Thank you.
Go back to the end, please.
Since we've been in office, we have invested in this program to meet the current future needs of the industry. A Liberal government will continue to contribute to the development of private woodlot silviculture, providing funding for the program, and by helping maintaining growth and benefit from leveraging opportunities. We will continue to listen and improve forest management efforts as industry practices evolve. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The third prepared question. We'll be starting with Bruce on this one. Crown land royalties are supposed to reflect the true market value and are based on annual or periodic analysis of stumpage prices paid in the private woodlot sector. As was noted in the 2008 Auditor General's report, quote, "The price that is paid to the private landowners determines the price the mills will pay to the province for timber harvested from crown land, which represents 41.5% of their supply. This would provide an incentive for mills to keep the prices paid to private landowners as low as possible, since those prices affect the royalties that would have to be paid in the future. Since the mills represent a very large proportion of the buyers for timber harvested in Brunswick, they also have the market power to keep the prices paid to private landowners low. The result could be a continual spiraling down of prices and therefore royalties. As has been pointed out by the Brunswick Auditor General, financial losses of operating crown lands can often cost taxpayers millions of dollars annually. The question posed is, in an effort to determine a more accurate market value of crown land stumpage rates, would you support an initiative that would see a small percentage of crown land forest products put up for tender on an annual basis to independent harvesting contractors?
Bruce? The Auditor General, and we've been very clear about this, that the Auditor General does a very good job in what she does. She's like a third party that looks at everything, not just a few items, but looks at 100% of the story. So we want to invest in the Auditor General so she can do a better job than she is doing now. And personally, does this make sense to do it? Yes, it does. There's no doubt that this conversation has been going on for many, many years, and many of the meetings I've been in has been going on for many, many years. So a proposal, if elected, a proposal within the first 2 or 3 months of office, that a proposal would be taken to the Premier and Cabinet. I don't know the details, what would be in it, but it would be something that we worked on in the first 2 or 3 months of an elected government. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. I agree with Bruce, and that is the information going to the Auditor General. But unfortunately, the Auditor General can only give you a report on the information that she's given. And we need more transparency on the information that goes directly to the Auditor General so she can give us an accurate report on where we stand on our forests. I believe as of today, I can't find a figure anywhere of what the revenue is from our natural resources, which is the forest that we have today. But in answer to your question, providing more competitive access to the Crown lands and reviewing all current Crown license, agreements to open prospects to current idle mills, plus pending opportunities which include diversified value-added opportunities. So, I guess in short, Bruce is absolutely right. We need better reporting, and the Auditor General is our best source to do that. But again, she needs to get all of the accurate information in order to give us up-to-date stats of where we actually are, what profits we're making off the natural resources. And I believe as of today, we have absolutely no idea what we're getting for royalties off of the Woodlot.
Thanks, Jim. We can pass that back down to Ian.
We see the potential for greater use for private wood, but we are bound by the memorandums of the agreement signed by the previous government in early 2014. We are certainly open to working with our stakeholders to provide the best data available. We will continue to listen and improve forest management efforts. The Liberal government will continue to work with the New Brunswick Forest Products Commission to conduct a market of ongoing wood transaction data to ensure the Department of Energy and Resource Development has an up-to-date information on the market. Thank you.
John?
I don't know if anybody's noticed me biting my tongue a little bit here. I guess I'm not going to make a good politician because I can't spin. And there's direct questions asked here, and the answers have been all over the board, and I'm trying to get away from that for you folks. And I would question the 41.5%. I know that's what the Auditor General said in 2008, but the last 2015 timber utilization survey that I reviewed, Crown is 55% now of their needs are being met off Crown land. So, and during that same time frame, back when Bruce was in government, we've been as low as 7% of industry's needs, and we've now worked our way back up to 15%, but we're still at 1980 prices. So, anyway, when it comes to having spots of Crown land, put out to tender to see what it is worth and the royalty rates we should get as taxpayers for that. In all due respect, I'm trying to be nice, but when Bruce was the minister, I did it with him, the government before him, and the government after, suggesting strongly that we take at least 3 plots in the province, put it out for tender, and see what it is worth. They're going to look at it, they're going to study it, they're going to talk about it. Who's going to do anything? A Green government will do that, number one, and we will get a fair price for our Crown land for taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chris? Point of order, John's the only one that answered the question.
Thank you, Cyril. Was that a question?
No, I guess it's a statement, I guess.
Thanks, Cyril.
Maybe you could ask the others to answer the question.
They had their 3 minutes, Cyril.
Well, we know what we get.
We can ask questions, though, right?
This is where I'm going to entertain if you don't feel comfortable taking the mic, written questions, I've gotten a couple from the audience already. If anybody has written questions, I've got a couple of co-workers in the room with me. Pam, our manager's at the back. Rudy Graves is up front here with me. I'm going to start with the two that I've been given, and if we don't receive any other written questions, we will take the cordless mic in an orderly fashion and entertain questions from the floor. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, thank you. So, to continue the process of allowing people to go first, we're going to ask Jim to respond first, then we'll go to Ian, John, and then Bruce. So the first question that I've been given from the floor, it kind of touches on what we've already spoke about a moment ago, but it'll be entertaining to hear your response nevertheless. So I'm going to put the question out. So the question states, how much is it costing the people of New Brunswick to cut our crown wood after the cost of management, roads, and replanting is taken into account? Jim, would you like to try and respond to that?
Absolutely. That's a very good question, and I'll give you a little bit of background. Since I got these questions, I started digging into the forest management manual. And I think this is something that will probably take about 6 months to come up with all the answers, because it's very, very complex. It just depends where you look, what report that you look at. CIBC put out a report that indicated that we are losing up to $100 million a year in our forestry because of mismanagement. When I look at the report that was given to the Auditor General in 2015 and 2016, because I can't find anything more current than that, it shows me that we've lost $10 million. That's about as close as answers that I can give you. Say the more you dig into it, the more you seem to find, the more this is totally baffling, totally confusing, and that's about as straight an answer I can give you.
Thank you, Jim. That's a good Ian.
Well, what I want to say to that is, number one, I'm not an expert. This is all new information to me. But what I do know is that when the previous government reduced the private woodlot owners by 20%, the present government, now the Liberal government, increased the conservation by 5% to offset that. So they kind of worked around it, I guess, in favor of the woodlot owner.
Yes, John? Yeah.
An excellent question, and I don't have the answer either. Because how in the name of goodness can you find out what it costs when everything is shrouded in secrecy? Using the Bruce's government's 660,000 cubic meters extra they gave to industry. If there's anybody in the room that's seen it other than Bruce, for example, in its totality, please raise your hand. And I assume Bruce has, because he was in government at the time. So how can you make decisions? How can you know what costing is when everything's secret? It has to be transparent, and I'll suggest that you're not hiding anything, but if you're not, why in heck would you show the people? So I don't know how much it's costing us. We know we're losing money. The Auditor General said that on 2 occasions, from 10 to 100 million, you pick. But we're losing money, so we have to change that. And but to put a number on it, sorry, I can't do it.
Thanks, John. Bruce?
Thank you, John, and I agree with John about the 4 years that we were in government. The 3 years that I was at the Minister of Natural Resources, I took my job very seriously, did what I could, met with all the stakeholders, and when we go from 28% of the conservation forest down to 23, it was probably when I got out of there and they shuffled me to another department. I'm being very honest about this. I always have been, I always will be, till the day I die, that it didn't have to go to 23%. Spent 3 years on it. I was more than willing to go to 26%, and now all of a sudden, 3 years, 11 months, 2 weeks later, the Liberal government comes up with all this conservation area, about 120,000 conservation area when they said in 2014 that they would make a commitment to do something with the forestry agreement in the first year. So I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm not hiding any facts. That's the true facts from where I sit here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's a great segue, Bruce, into our next question with respect to conservation areas. To give you a heads up, the next individual that will reply first, we'll start with Ian down at the end and come across. So with respect to conservation, the question posed from the audience: would greater harvest from private woodlots allow an increase in conservation forests on Crown land? Would this become policy of your government?
Well, if I happen to get elected, I would certainly look at the issue and put it forward. I would.
Thank you.
One and one's still two, I think, and certainly if the industry's needs were being met with a substantial amount of private wood, then that should leave more Crown to be set aside for conservation areas. But let's remember what the Liberal government said in their conservation strategy increase, is it's over 5 years. Unless something has changed, we're going in 4-year cycles here as government. So they could very easily go 4 years and do absolutely nothing, like successive governments continue to do on most files. So anyway, yes, without question, more wood from private, getting us back to our proportional spot where we should be, would make Crown lands available for setting aside.
Thanks, John.
I'd just like to re-emphasize what I said earlier when I answered the last question, and like I say, I've been very upfront with a lot of people in this room, that the 28%, we've studied that, we've looked at that for 3 years, and it didn't have to go to 23%. There's no way in hell that it had to go to 23%. I was willing to go 26%, and that would allow more Crown land in the conservation forest. But obviously that hasn't happened, so we would look at the contracts that were signed and see what we could do about that. Thank you.
To answer the question, again, the People's Alliance, the very first thing that they're committing to is to make the private woodlot land the primary source of wood. The Crown land would make up the buffer of the wood that is going to need it to keep the mills going, but the primary source of wood would be coming from the private woodlot owners. One of the other comments, Bruce, in regards to, and I take my hat off to you for standing up, but unfortunately, your own government threw you under the bus. They didn't take your advice. And when it passed over to the Liberals, their commitment was that they were going to do a review. And they did a review, all right. They did nothing, and nothing changed. And here we are again today, the same thing. We're having this meeting, and hopefully something's going to come out of this. If the People's Alliance gets elected, we are going to make some changes in our policy. You can see right here that we are going to establish a policy that the private woodlot is going to be the primary source of wood. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Pam and Rudy, if you might just walk up and down the aisle to see if anybody has a prepared question or not. If you do, it's kind of like the church offering. If you want to hand it out to the end of your row. Anybody? Nothing written? All right, if there isn't, we're going to get the mic here in just a second.
You have some questions in the
Well, we do have additional questions. If you want to put one of those forward, it's at the pleasure of the crowd. If I don't get anything, I'm going to start making reference to these. Is there one of them that's burning? Take the cordless, and I'll give you folks the cordless. Two mics. Oh, we're getting questions coming forward here. Just a minute, folks. Two here. Thank you, ma'am. I'll give you guys the portals back. So the person that's going to get to respond to this first will be John, then Bruce, Jim, and then Ian. going to save this one for the second one. Yeah, we're going to give John the tough one. So, the question, gentlemen, is the first one in the all-party debate questions that wasn't posed outside of the three. So if you're looking at your handout, I think it begins 3 years, both Liberal. It's in everybody's handout. So somebody's asked us to put this one forward. So I think.
Which question?
No, sorry, this came from somebody else. Just disregard that. So this came from somebody that had another prepared question. It's not in your handout material, my apologies. So John, then Bruce, Jim, and then Ian. So the question that's posed is, this is the background. For years, both Liberal and Conservative governments have used Crown land to subsidize the province's pulp mills and sawmills, resulting in New Brunswick being the only province in Atlantic Canada to be punished with U.S. duties and tariffs. Also, an overabundance of guaranteed Crown wood supply to these mills has enabled them to offer take-it-or-leave-it prices to private woodlot owners and producers. Question: if elected, what would your party do to correct this situation? Thank you for that submission. John?
Yep. So, number one, immediately upon being elected, the Green Party would follow the legislation on proportional supply. And soon thereafter would bring back legislation to have private woodlots primary source of supply. So, and I've been in this game for a while now, and to negotiate and to come up with a fair price, you have to have willing participants around the table. And we would all be that way. If you don't need to negotiate, if you don't want or need what the other person has, then they'll give you a buck and that's it. So the only way that that's going to happen is we have to force industry to pay their fair share and not use our private or our public lands to subsidize industry. I mean, one just only has to look at the end result, and this is something that I've been proposing to industry for over a decade, is let's set a benchmark. Because we all know in this world, prices go up and down. So you can't have something that's that stable. So let's set a benchmark, and as the prices go up, we go up together in a win-win. When it goes down, we go down together. The last 4 governments, not one of them, and Bruce included, will not even talk about it, will not sit down with us in industry and set a benchmark, because that's the only way it can work. We can't be getting $100 a cord when the market will only bear 10. But on the other hand, right now we're getting 1980 prices when at the end of the line, whether it be a 2x4 or pulp, at the end of the line, the prices have doubled over the last 10 years. And private woodlot owners have seen none of that. It's not filtering its way down. And as long as the Crown forests are used against us, it will never change.
Thanks.
It's a good question, and it's a question where all the stakeholders have to get in a room, and this has happened a few times in the last little while. And there's a few people in this room that have been in that room to try to negotiate a deal for everybody concerned. Has it happened? No, it hasn't happened. But it has been tried, and when John was saying it hasn't been tried, well, I have to say it has been tried. And it's one of those situations where you have to get everybody in the room. Is everybody going to agree? No, for sure. And that's happened many times when I was there, that not everybody agreed. But there's no magical wand that you can just wave and something will happen. So it's something that has to be looked at with everybody, all the stakeholders in the same room to work out a deal.
Thanks, Bruce. Jim, you need anybody question repeated or?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Again, the primary source of wood needs to come from the private woodlot owners. Pricing, if we can't establish a price here, why not look at other alternative markets? Somebody should be able to give us a base price to go over. Pricing is going to fluctuate. Everybody knows that. It's going to be by demand and supply. If you've got it and I want it and there's not enough to go around, I'm going to buy more. I'm going to pay more for it. But as my colleagues here all mentioned, is that money doesn't always solve problems. People do. And if people can get in the room and have an open and frank dialogue, we can come up to a fair price. And it has to be a win-win situation. The private woodlot owners have to make a living. The mills have to make a profit, otherwise they're not going to be there. And we also have to understand that both sides create a lot of jobs and they employ a lot of people. But at the end of the day, we all have to be winners. And the only way you can do that is to sit down and have a good open dialogue and discussion, and you have to have a win-win situation. If one person goes away mad, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Down to the end to Ian, please.
That is a great question, and the short answer is that if I got elected, I'd like to reevaluate the legislation and make it better for private woodlot owners. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question that came from our audience. Sorry, John.
Can I start that one?
Well, you were looking at me like you never had a chance.
I was wondering who
You had that deer in the headlight lock up. What? I check off every time somebody replies. Don't do that. All right, thank you, Ian. So our next question, and we will start with Bruce, Jim, Ian, and John. So the question that came from the floor, first of all, it thanks you for coming out to hear our concerns. So they're gracious and appreciative. As far as I can tell, and I think most people are in agreement, the reason we are here is we, as private landowners, are in competition with Crown Land to sell our wood at a fair market price as comparable to the retail price that lumber is going for. So the question that's been posed, my question is for the Liberal and Conservative MLA, since both parties have made policies that have brought us to this place, can you tell us what the government is currently receiving per cubic meter for wood purchase from Crown Land, and are your parties satisfied with these rates? And if not, what are your parties willing to do to bring these Crown wood rates up to make the private wood more favorable to mills at a rate that would get private landowners a fair price? That's a loaded question. So this individual has directed this at the Liberal and Conservative MLAs, and the other parties are certainly welcome to chime in. So Bruce?
I don't have those figures in front of me for sure. I mean, I've been in opposition for the last 4 years, and I don't have access to those kind of figures, but the figures are up on the board there right now.
Yeah, I thought it might come up.
So obviously, Chrissy's done her homework, but it's the prices there that has to be negotiated. They have to, like I say, get everybody together in the same room to be able to see what we can do for the price. So I'm sorry that I don't have that information in front of me. Obviously, Chris has it up there now.
Ian, you're the Liberal candidate. Would you like to try and respond? It was directed.
Well, all I can say is, like I said earlier, I'm not an expert on this issue, but I do hear your concerns that it has to get better, and maybe someday, hopefully, I hope it will. But like I said, I don't have those numbers in front of me either. So.
Well, if you're curious, sorry for the skew. Andy, Chair. I won't go through them all, but the two that I'll bring to your attention, and I know there's licensee reps in here and they're going to dispute this. Nevertheless, Crown Land royalties are supposed to be based on free market. We know what our market is like here in southern New Brunswick. However, what doesn't get talked about is the overhead or the management fee that licensees get rebated on Crown Land royalties. So I'm only going to take 30 seconds to show you how this works. But up at the top, I looked this up this morning for today. So since April 5th of 2017, and this goes back in time for quite a while, so you can see I've been tracking this for a while. Back to 1994, I've kept track of royalty rates. Is it a pet peeve? You might say it is. So the two primary commodities that come off the Crown today, so if you look at the products on the far left that I'm tracking down, Studwood and Lathwood. The Crown's doing, I must admit, respectively, on Studwood rates on Crown. They've actually come up a bit. So you'll see 3 figures there for the current royalty rate. The true market value, the overhead reduction, and the actual royalty. So if you look, I know it's hard for everybody in this room to see, but the market value per cubic meter right there is 25.02 a cubic meter. The Crown, the overhead is $3.90, so the actual royalty is $21.12, respectable. If you're trying to figure out what that is in cords, multiply it by about 2, about 42 bucks a cord. Where it really gets a shame, disgraceful. Softwood pulp and hardwood pulp. Or softwood pulp in today's marketplace, I can understand the rate. The market value is paid at $7.59 a cubic meter. Deduct the royalty, or so the overhead of $3.90, leaves $3.69 a cubic meter for softwood pulp. The one that I think is terrible is hardwood pulp. Market value paid at $5.75, reduce the overhead by $3.90, $1.85 a cubic meter for hardwood pulp. What are you folks paying for your hardwood when it gets delivered in your dooryard for fuel wood? How much? How much are you paying a board? What if you just get it 8 foot? 160 bucks a cord for hardwood pulp for fuel wood. Crown lets it go for $1.85 a cubic meter. Anyway, times 2. We won't dwell on it. I know licensee representatives will argue the overhead shouldn't be deducted, but it is deducted from royalties. That's what the Crown gets as of April 5th, 2017. So, no, the overhead is supposed to pay for, a lot of people think that licensees get rebated for, they get paid for roads. That's not entirely true. The overhead deduction is supposed to pay for the management expenses and roads and things like that. So the net after the overheads is what the royalty is. And if you're curious, the overheads have been coming down. It's been a strategy of the province. If you look back in time, it was significantly higher. And again, I know it's hard to see. So 390 cubic meter is currently what it was. Last year it was the same. If you go back in time, the overhead royalty was substantially higher. 452, 475. You can go back in time and see over $5 a cubic meter in overheads. That's the deduction off the royalties. Anyway, that isn't why we're here tonight. We will carry on, but I had a suspicion that somebody might ask that question.
Chris, what's the source of that data?
It's online. It's public information. You just key in the fundamental questions. If you need the link, I'll give you my email. I'll give you the link. You can go online. Anybody can see what Crown land royalties are. It's public information, and you can see the overheads.
Will you provide us a copy of that when we request it?
Sure. Public information.
And Chris, if I may, I know the question wasn't for the two of us, but I'll use my time. I would like to respond to something that Bruce said about getting us all in the room. Yes, in fact, that has happened with the last 4 governments. But trust me when I tell you, and Bruce wasn't there in several of them, but he was in some, when it comes to a benchmark to make a fair price, that was not discussed, period. I made the request to all the governments, but that was not discussed. So, yes, all stakeholders have to be together. And yes, that's the only way to work something out is to have everybody in the room together, without question. And under Bruce's government, they brought in a mediator for JDI and SNB. And we worked together for several days on that. And a report was come up with by the mediator because we could not reach an agreement. Well, as of today, and that was in 2012, we still can't, and Bruce and his government decided that that was ministerial privilege, so the report that was written from that mediator to try to rectify the problem is, again, like everything else, secret. We still don't know what was in it. So there's no difference between the two, liberal or conservative. They say all these nice things, let's talk about it, let's sit down, let's sing Kumbaya, but at the end of the day, absolutely nothing happens. and you can, I'm biting my tongue here, you can decide for yourself why that is in the province of New Brunswick, and especially in southern New Brunswick.
Okay, thanks, John. We're now, everybody have a chance to respond to that one? Or that was okay, it was only directed at two, go ahead.
I really have nothing more to add to it. The figures you showed me, that's the first time I've seen them, and I said, this is a new industry to me. First time I ever picked up a chainsaw, I was 13 years old, and the first thing I ever thought, oh my God, I gotta get out of this business and do something different. I haven't had anything to do with the wood since then, except for 4 days ago. So anyway, I do apologize that I don't have all of those figures, but it's very complex.
Thanks, Jim. So, Bruce, you're at the top of the list on question 7, and then we'll go Jim, Ian, and then John. And it's a burning issue. Everybody wants to know. It's in the media, and what party position is on the issue around glyphosate spraying.
Another topic that gets a lot of conversation on glyphosate, and with Health Canada coming out and saying that it's safe, that's only one mention of how glyphosate works. I've talked to many farmers around this area, and glyphosate is used by the farmers. They don't know what they would do without glyphosate, but I'm not sitting here today 100% sure that it's safe to use. And I don't have all the facts and figures yet. There's different reports. There's one report that says it's good. There's one report that says it's not good, but it would be something that would have to be looked at in its entirety, and I don't feel that it has been looked at in entirety. There's always one side and the other side, and I think there still has to be a lot more work done on the glyphosate issue.
Thanks, Bruce. Jim?
That answer is simple. People's Alliance will ban it immediately. We will not use it to spray the forest to kill the vegetation. We do not believe that it is good for the environment. If it kills the vegetation, it's going to kill other things. It just takes a lot longer to do it. Thank you.
Ian?
Well, some of you all know I'm on a dairy farm, and our soybean field represents 30 acres.